This is Energized. I'm Jason Mann with Jim Czek, and the future is now. These are your EV, solar, and AI headlines and stories of the week. And let's start things off with an electric car shock. Ontario man told that his new battery would cost more than $50,000.
So this was a story done by Global News. The fella bought himself a 2017 Hyundai Kona. It was a used one, and he bought it and had 69,000 kilometers on it when he bought it. The warranty was to 160K. He put on about 172,000K, and then the battery died. So he took it in, and they gave him a quote for $50,000. So he said, I can buy a car for that. So he scrapped it. But then after that, Global reached out to Hyundai Canada, and then Hyundai Canada said, whoa, like we could have fixed that. So they're saying that they wish that it would have been escalated earlier, but they're going to reach out to the customer apparently and see what they can do. So I guess
if you buy that car used, you wouldn't be aware of what the replacement battery cost would be, or you wouldn't necessarily be informed in that unless you went out and sought that information.
I just think so I called Tesla to see what the replacement cost on my battery would be, because I know they're expensive, and they can range, and it depends on. I talked to the guy for quite a while, and they can range in pricing. So according to Elon Musk, it stated on Twitter that Teslas typically last 480 to 800,000 kilometers of batteries. There is an 8-year warranty, 160,000 kilometer warranty as well, and they will replace that battery if it fails in that time, or even goes below 80% of its full charge. The cost to replace batteries in Teslas, though, varies between $5,000 and $20,000.
Okay.
My Model 3 happens to have a high voltage lithium battery, and he said it would be $15,000 for the battery at this time, and $1,000 to install it, so $16K. Mm-hmm. But I'm assuming that batteries will get cheaper when this warranty runs out, or when you don't even have the car. I think as things go along, we've shown on this the first program how battery costs have continually coming down, right? So hopefully the replacement costs. So the good news in all that, I would say that it was $1,000 to replace the battery for like the labor. So it's just the battery itself. And they were saying at Tesla too that sometimes they don't just replace the whole battery, they replace pieces of the battery, right? So it doesn't necessarily mean. So I think maybe that Hyundai dealer maybe didn't have all the right information. It's new to them too, like maybe some of them, and they just looked and I don't know.
Well, when we bought our Hyundai, we were informed when we bought it that a new battery, if we needed one, would be $35,000. So so I don't know. I don't know that it is too far off. I mean, with taxes and everything else that kind of happens.
Well, Teslas are cheaper. So, but you do get, did you get an 8-year warranty too on?
I can't remember the actual term. We typically, I can't remember if it's the 160 or if we bought a longer warranty on it or not, or if even if it was available, to be honest, but I can look into it.
The Cybertruck is showing up in tons of showrooms out there.
Did you say we have one in Kelowna? Or
that's my wife leaving on a road trip. We don't have one in Kelowna. We don't. They're going to open a dealership here, but I don't think there's any Cybertrucks in Canada yet. But there is a bunch in some showrooms. You have that video, Marcy, that you can show us? She's going to show us. So this is in one of the showrooms in the States. They're starting to get them everywhere. The lines look just so clean, eh? So the delivery event for this will be November 30th. So some lucky people will be getting their hands on these Cybertrucks. They have to sign an agreement not to sell the truck for a year unless it's back to Tesla, or they face a $50,000 fine for selling the pickup truck. It looks pretty. I mean,
you could buy a Hyundai battery for that.
Gary Black, one of the investors in Tesla, said he took his girlfriend or his wife there to see it, and she was like, when she seen pictures, she's like, "That's ugly. I would never get in a truck like that." When they got there, she's like, "When are we getting ours?"
Oh, really? Really? So yeah, see it to believe it in person. Huh?
Yeah, they said it was just amazing in person. So, yeah. Do we have Kent's video? Are we looking at Kent's video from yesterday? I don't think so, eh? Kent did a video yesterday. He went down to Kelowna Ford Lincoln and he took a look inside a F-150 Lightning and a Ford Mach-E. So if you go on KonaNow.com, you'll find that story. And, it talks about some of the demographics that are buying, the Mustangs and the F-150 Lightnings. So pickup trucks right now in EV, Rivian, I see a few in town.
Yep.
I've seen a few. There we go. We're back. Little technical difficulty there. F-150 Lightning. They have F-150s in stock.
Yeah.
At the dealership.
Did you get it? Have you ever driven a F-150 Lightning?
I've been in a couple of them. I have not driven in one yet. Yeah. I've been in a couple of them. They look like a fancier Ford pickup inside. Lots of buttons, which is different from a Tesla, where Tesla is like there's no buttons, right? It's just like very clean inside a Tesla. In the Mustang and in the F-150 Lightning, it's more
tactile.
What you expect, right?
Yeah.
Like what you expect in a gas car, or what maybe, and that maybe to some users. They like that. Like Kent was saying, he kind of likes the more buttons because that's what he's used to. He's not very.
I kind of like it in the Hyundai, to be honest. Like
you like all the buttons?
They streamlined out a lot of the buttons, so it's not button heavy. There's certainly some vehicles I've seen over time. Acuras, just come to mind with a lot of buttons. It's quite overwhelming, but it's streamlined. It's got a nice size display, I figure, and it's nice. But that said, there is something to be said for that crisp, clean feel inside the Tesla.
I had that a C7 Corvette that was like a cockpit, right? You sit in there and there's just buttons that wraps right around. You think you're in a fighter jet, right? There's so many buttons. You don't even know what all the buttons do, right? And I thought I would have a tough time with no buttons, and I really like it. It's super clean. Like even in the Teslas, there's no vents. Like you don't even see the vents, right? Where those vents take up so much room in most cars, right?
Yeah.
It's very, very clean. So. Yeah, very futuristic and very minimalistic, right? So, yeah. So we have some pictures to show you, too. Some other stuff that's out there that's kind of interesting. This was at one of the auto shows. Motorcycles are now coming in EV. Check that out. You like motorcycles? You ride?
I do, yeah. This it's interesting to me. So, first off, if I were to ride on the road, I think I would lean towards Harley just because the sound and just...
You're one of those guys?
Well, no, not so much that. I made a very significant. I used to have like a GSX-R 750 on the street, but
you want to drive a tractor on the road, a Harley?
I just like to be seen and heard coming on a bike on the street.
Thing,
yeah, right. Yeah. And it's just the best one for that. So I stick to dirt because I don't love the idea.
That thing probably has torque like you wouldn't believe.
It would. But here's the thing. If you're out in the dirt, you also want to have a little bit of noise for the bears, I think, don't you?
I have no idea. The bears want to hear you? Or what?
Keep the bears alert if you're a rival.
I'm not sure if the bears are in the cat.
Anyways, that's a beautiful bike, though. And I imagine, can you imagine with the power, it would just be right instant?
Yeah, it's just crazy. Some of the main reasons that people buy an EV, Marcy, so... The biggest reason I think right now is people seeing what the carbon tax and all that stuff is saving money on fuel. Makes
100%,
sense, right?
100%.
I think that's Marcy found this account trending now. It's a pretty good one on X. And since I haven't really been to a gas station, although I borrowed somebody's truck once and then I filled it up because I was being nice. It was all foreign at the gas station. I had to figure out how to use a pump. Better design, I would have to say that they're definitely a lot sleeker inside.
I'm surprised better design is not actually higher. I mean, saving money on fuel is definitely.
I think maybe some people think they want the buttons, and some of them don't have the buttons. They have big screens, most of them.
But doesn't better design include just how the power is so much more instant? And
maybe I was thinking more of the UI, but yeah. Climate change. Some people are buying them because they feel that they need to do something about climate change. And then some people are buying because of the rebates, which makes sense. There's the rebates in Canada and in British Columbia. There's a $5,000 federal rebate for all EVs. Everybody gets that. Doesn't matter what your income level is. In the province of British Columbia, there's an additional $4,000 that's stepped down based on your income. So I think once you hit 88,000, you don't get anything. Right?
And then are there still rebates on the chargers, home chargers?
I think they pay half of a charger, up to $350. So for putting a charger in your house, I don't think you can get one done for $350. But
no. Yeah.
And then there's those people that have FOMO, fear of missing out. I guess they see their neighbor has one. That's a lot of what happens though when people somebody else has one and they go walk over there and they're like, oh, how's this work? And because there's so much, that's what we're trying to do here with this, is clear up some of the misconceptions, right? That people like range anxiety. Like I've sat through a lot of different, sitting at the table, listening to people, and they think that they're only good for the city. I drive mine to Calgary and Vancouver all the time. They believe that it takes 8 hours to charge. And, when a supercharger's 10, 20, 30 minutes, depending on, your car and that kind of stuff. And then there's also government regulation that's forcing the expansion of EVs. Like they're saying they're forcing the automakers to do it. And I don't know what the 3% of the other are thinking. Maybe because it was a good deal. Who knows, right?
Didn't want to say.
Who knows? But I would say like the top reason for most people, it's going to be the one that I would add on there, not just saving money on fuel, but saving money on maintenance.
Oh,
maintenance is crazy. No oil changes, no radiator flushes. When you go to the typical, I think Marcy was telling us. So you go to the get your oil done, which is $120 usually, and then they're telling you, you need a rad flush, a transmission change, and a rear end thing change. Because guess what? The Tesla doesn't have EVs. So there's no rear end, there's no mufflers, there's no oil changes, there's no spark plugs, windshield washers or windshield wipers. Washer fluid,
tires,
and they do
brakes,
go through tires. They go
brakes.
through brakes. Some people are getting 1 million miles on them because the Teslas are one pedal driving. I don't know if it's. Do you have one pedal driving in yours? Like, do you use your brake?
I do.
You use the brake,
but I use it's actually got paddles for.
So you actually use brakes though.
I sort of, yes, on occasion I do. There's regenerative braking, and there's 3 levels of regenerative braking, and so you can usually drive around without applying the brakes.
I never use the brake. I don't say never. If like a dog ran out, I might stop.
Yeah. So you're timing your stops based on distance, and it slows down quickly enough.
It's if you put it on aggressive regenerative braking, it basically like you can make people sick. Because he's like,
yeah, okay. It's not that aggressive in the Hyundai, so at times.
Yeah, no, it's like you're putting on the brakes for sure. It's Marcy's nodding her head. Yeah, so then you get used to it, so you don't make people motion sick. You just kind of like let off the gas a little bit easier.
Yeah.
But if you're never using those brakes, and mine has really big brakes on it, so when you do need to use them, they're there, right? So I do know from like we went to a tire shop there, they were saying that they do definitely, the heavier car and the torque, they do kind of go through the tires a little faster, right? So that's one of the downsides of it. They do have a silent tire, though. The Tesla tires have foam inside the tire. I don't know if you know that or not. They actually put a bunch of foam in there. So
Elon's very interested in tires. Like
I know. Did you see when you looked at the Cybertruck? They have a weird tire. It must have been made by Goodyear just for them because it has that pattern. They got that funky looking wheel on there. Pretty interesting though. So Marcy also found some cool photos of police cars. These ones are out of California. This is the Model Y. But in Richmond, we also have the RCMP are using Model Y all decked out. So one of the cool things, it was on, I think it was Oracle that was doing a presentation because they do a lot of security stuff. And they're saying one of the benefits for Teslas is that they already come equipped with 8 cameras. So those cameras are always recording.
Right.
So then the police department doesn't have to install a bunch of cameras on the car because that car is already running cameras and it has a system built into it that is recording all the time. So that allows them to keep that footage.
I wonder what they do to increase the performance of the vehicle if they do anything at all. Because they would do that with the Crown Vicky, right? Like they would.
I don't think you need to increase the performance there. And it looks like they outfitted it. They fit their gear in there pretty good.
So that would be a couple of things then that they would be actually saving money on then potentially.
Yeah, I've seen quite a few police departments, and I did a thing with Doug Gilchrist yesterday too, the city manager, and they said they're starting to add EVs into their fleet as they retire their older gas models. There's some things they can't do, but they're trying to do what they can as far as that goes. But those are pretty cool photos though of you're not going to outrun that thing.
No, and it's the Teslas are pretty badass looking. I mean, they make a good police car.
I think it just makes it for that comfort in them is pretty good too on long road trips. People say the seats in them are really good. So like if our police officer sitting in the car for most of the day, I think that adds to his experience too and his work experience. So, you know, I just think that's it's interesting to see as we move forward. And then you had something you wanted to bring up. You're talking about hydrogen. You're saying Toyota and Honda are still betting on hydrogen quite a bit.
Yeah. It seems like they've been out front of it a lot in the news lately. Just talking, I think more along the lines from what I could pick up, they're sort of, some people in some camps are thinking that it might be long-term a better play than EV. For short-term, they're saying no, but for long-term, and so they're trying to find space, I think.
So they're saying like that the evidence, however, paints a different picture, though, both in terms of prospects for hydrogen versus electrified transport. There's only 72,000 hydrogen fuel cell vehicles on the planet at the end of 2022 versus 26 million EVs. So it's kind of like that Betamax. Remember Betamax and the VHS? You remember that, right? Yeah. I bought a Betamax because the guy at the store said, Betamax is the future. So I bought the Betamax. And you go into the video store at that time, it'd be like 5 Betamax videos and like, you know, hundreds of VHS. Yeah. And it got worse as it went along, right? Because you're just like, did that come out in Betamax? They're saying, you should probably sell that, right? And the picture quality wasn't that much different. And Sony hung on to that technology and didn't share it, whereas VHS was open technology. Right. Yeah,
and we kind of went through that again with like Blu-ray, didn't we?
Blu-ray, yeah. That didn't last long though, because Blu-ray, all of a sudden streaming showed up, right? And Blu-ray did not have a shelf life of, that was like a bad head of lettuce, right? Yeah. So we do have a chart here with the hydrogen vehicles just to kind of show you, illustrate that, the adoption there of the, so.
Well, I tell you what, it looks like some of the engines and the designs that they're working on look
I did buy Ballard stock, which is hydrogen fuel cells. Yeah. It was a Canadian darling stock at one time too, and I think I bought it in the low $2, and then I sold it early around 6 something or whatever, and then it promptly went to like $24, right? But I think it's promptly back down below 6 or 4. Yeah. I think it works well in large scale super tankers, like really large vehicles, buses maybe.
And maybe short distance.
But I think where they're having trouble in repeat orders, right? Because, you know, somebody would buy some hydrogen buses, but then where you're going to really see the pickups if they buy the second. You know what I mean? Like that's where you're seeing if people buy, like, even like if you take a Tesla, is the car good enough so somebody buys a second Tesla when they're out of the first? You know what I mean? Like, so that's the rub, I think, right? So we're starting to see that in some of the electric buses where people aren't buying them again because they're just not ready, some of them, right? So so I think Tesla's been around now since what? They've been 2012, or maybe even a little earlier. They made the Roadster first, because it was the Roadster first, the Model S, the X, the 3, and then the Y, right? So then we have another chart here that just shows you, because there's another myth out there that says EV sales are plateauing. That, you know, I think it's more some of the manufacturers are saying that because they're having a tough time ramping up. We had a chart there. The top 10 EV markets are kind of like booming and showing you the adoption rate in that. That's the big thing, is like places like, you know, like Norway has an 82% adoption rate already in the new share of new cars, right? It's not fleet on the road, it's the new cars, right? Whereas Canada is pretty low. Like Canada's at 6%. Although British Columbia and Quebec are in the 20 plus range, right? Like 21, something like that. Quebec and in Ontario is getting quite a few EVs. But
so in fact, then Quebec and BC are leading China.
No, China's like at China overall is a lot higher than what you see on this chart here. But like China put 1.2 million new EVs on the road in quarter 2, I think it is quarter 2. So China is really good. They got about 100 EV manufacturers in China, and Tesla's in China too. And one of the biggest factories for Tesla is Shanghai, and they do about 1 million vehicles out of there alone. And that's where the new Model 3 hybrid or Highland is being made. So, but you can see California obviously leading the way. California would, right?
Look at that. They have over a third of the United States total. Is that right? Am I seeing that right?
California?
Yeah, just that one.
California is definitely, it's very similar to British Columbia, kind of like them, like people lifestyle kind of thing and more worried about the environment, I'd say. But California is like the 10th largest economy in the world. If it was its own country. California is big in so many different ways, right? Germany is really pushing EVs as well. But look at that year-over-year change. Like if you look at California, year-over-year change, 70%. Germany, 51%. France, 50%. United States, 48%. Year-over-year change. They're seeing the growth in that. Sweden, 47%. UK, 40%. Again, Canada, I think in Canada it's really been politicized too much, whereas EVs are seen as this right-left climate change thing. I think the Liberal government has jammed climate change down people's throats, where they're pushing back and they see the EV as that flag for it. But
the line in the sand.
Yeah, and I think that's the wrong way to look at it. The EVs are just better vehicles, right? It's just better technology. It's like, I think you and I were talking earlier, it's like Windows versus Apple. Like, do you know what I mean? I'm not a Windows fan. I used to be. I used Windows for probably the first 10 years. And then I finally got a taste of Apple, and I'm just like, it'd be really hard to go back. I don't think I'd use a computer. I don't think I'd use a computer. If it says you have to use a Windows computer, I'd say, you know what?
I'm out. I'm tapping out. I don't think it's been since Windows 2000 that I've been on a Windows product.
Like, is there Windows phones? Because they did come out with
Android.
some.
Android.
No, that's Google. But there was a Windows phone at one point. At one point.
See, that's how.
Yeah. They were bad. See there, Marcy said they were bad. We got to get a mic over there too. Yeah, Windows phones. Like it's like when you boot up Windows. Like we tried to boot up a computer today. Right? Yeah, twice. We tried to boot up 3 of them. Yeah. 2 of them had that blue screen of death that said it needs to be repaired. And just like yikes. And then the other one came up after a while. And it's like buying lettuce, right? Like you use your Windows for a while. It's like crisp. Like a week later, it's just like one of the things doesn't work. This doesn't work. That doesn't work.
This is a little
and then you
slow.
all of a sudden start to see that blue screen of death all the time. And then you're just like, yikes. One of the things I'll say for the Tesla too, and the software side of it, there's the screen they have is very responsive, very fast. I don't know what your experience is. You drive a Hyundai Kona. How is your screen?
Yeah, I think it's. I mean, I don't have any complaints about it. That's for sure. I'd have to give yours a spin to kind of see what you're saying.
Yeah, we keep saying we're going to do it, right? You're just scared to let me drive yours.
I have to clean it up for sure. Otherwise, I won't hear the end of it. I won't hear the end of it.
So, like you have to get a shovel in there.
I have 3 kids under 10. So,
one of the things that's puzzled me in yours, it still has a drive shaft. Like the back seat of a car in the front.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, why?
Well, I think I can't answer that for you exactly, other than I think it was just getting to market as quickly as possible.
So I'm going to just take a little hammer and just pound that down? It's much nicer with a flat floor.
They made some changes. The year before ours was actually quite a bit more traditional. They've made some changes and adapted it for EV this year.
How long have you had it now?
1 year now.
Nice. Would you buy it again?
Yeah, I mean, it's not been a bad car.
That's good.
Yeah, I mean,
I think Hyundai is one of the better manufacturers out there, right? I would say to everybody, at least, if you're going to buy an EV, test drive a few of them, right? Yeah. Go test drive the Mach-E. Go test drive the Hyundais. I think they got the Iconics and the Konas and all that.
And they have a pretty good track record with batteries. I think they have a fairly strong battery.
I think Hyundai has done a really good job. I mean, if you think of a Hyundai Pony when it first came out.
Yeah, right? Jeez. I've long forgotten about that.
And I've owned a Hyundai, that Velociter, the 3-door car. Yeah. My wife did not like that car. She said, this car does not know what it wants to be.
Well, and how they've gone upstream with Genesis. And
yeah, I've driven a Genesis. That was a pretty slick ride.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's a pretty comfortable ride. But yeah, I would say drive a few and then drive a Tesla for sure, because that's going to be your benchmark. I would say you drive that Tesla, and they're pretty good. You can take a Tesla home, like, you know what I mean? They're just like, sure, take it home, because they're pretty confident that. Well, they can also bring it back. I think they can, they can summon that car just to bring that.
They know what's exactly happened here.
It is another leash though, because my wife knows where I am all the time.
Yeah.
My daughter too. They just look on the app and just like, oh, what's he doing there? So it does have a leash component in it. We're kind of getting a little silly there.
No, but that is an interesting aspect of owning an electric. That's a little bit different for sure, right?
There is so many cool benefits in it. Like I said, I think we talked about in the news we do every morning now. In the morning, like I used to start my truck because I had an app that I would fire it up and the neighborhood would hear it, right? Because it's a big diesel truck. Because I get up at 3 a.m, so I'm pretty sure the neighbors are just like, "Oh my god, he's up again."
And you would do that with an aftermarket remote car starter?
No, I think GM had an app or whatever.
Yeah.
It came. I think most GMs now come with car remote start. Even the Corvette had remote start, which you wouldn't drive it in the winter. But so I'd fire it up. And it would take a while. Like if you left it for 10 minutes, which is against the bylaw in Kona, if you left it for 10 minutes, it still wouldn't be hot, like in the winter. But the Tesla, I put it on defrost, and I'd say I'm out in there in 2 minutes, and I was just like I got blasted with hot air when I opened the door. It was just like stepping into Mexico or something like that. Just you open the door and just this wave of heat hits you, right? So the car is warm, seats are warm, steering wheel's warm. I couldn't turn those on in the truck. I could not turn the steering wheel or the seats on. Only thing I could get was the heat going, right? And so it's kind of really cool. Yeah. And you can schedule it too, so you don't even have to turn it off. Like I can say it whatever time that I wanted to be warm. And the other thing you can do is there's a keep mode. So if you're going to go into Orchard Park Mall and you're going to go shopping for Christmas to buy a gift for the kids and the wife, you put keep on. Like if you had either you need something to stay cool or you need something to stay warm, you can put keep on. It'll keep the temperature that you have while you're in the store. And it also has dog mode. So if you have the dog in the car, dog mode, and it displays on the screen, don't break my window. My dog is in a protected, climate-controlled environment.
That would, if I knew that, you know what, that might have changed.
So I think Elon has bragged and said no dog or child has ever died in a Tesla because it has climate cabin protection or whatever. So
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, so there's lots of cool features that are in these cars, and the cool thing is that there's not a lot of buttons in my mind to see the feet. You know what I mean? Like, because if you get in, my wife had a fancy BMW, and there's buttons everywhere too, right? Like, and you're hunting for things, right? Like, I drove this other vehicle the other day, a brand new vehicle, 2023, drove it, and I won't say the name of it, but for the life of me, all the way to Calgary, I drove it. I could not figure out how to do cruise control on it because there's 3 buttons to hit. And I just kept hitting them all in kind of in a sequence, and they finally worked. But I didn't know what the sequence was, right, to do again. So I just kind of like just start fiddling with all the buttons. And then it works again. I'm just like, okay, that's good, right? Because I think you have to turn it on with one button. Then you have to set it with another button. And I'm just like, I don't know. Like, I'm not sure. Like, seems like a lot of buttons. Whereas
it's a one-touch.
Just one touch on the thing. Right?
Same as the Hyundai. They've got
you just hit that on the Model 3. You hit the thing down on Nikki's, so you hit the button on there. And then 2 buttons, and it's on autopilot, right? So do you have autopilot on?
No, it's like an assisted.
Yeah.
So you kind of fade
Helps
over.
you into the ditch or what?
Yeah. It's an assisted suicide for sure. Yeah.
I think Nikki's M8 had that. You turn it on. I think it was called lane assist, right?
Yeah.
And it was fine if the lines were there. As soon as the lines disappeared, it's off the road. So I didn't trust it at all. I'm just like, no, I don't think so.
Yeah, it seems to be a kind of a useless feature that way.
Yeah,
maybe it'll provide a bit of comfort or a backup in a moment, but unless you have that actually selected and the road lines are there,
I don't know. Like, I mean, if you're driving to Rock Creek over the back there, I don't think you'd want to be trusting it. Right? Whereas I've used autopilot everywhere. So yeah, there's that. We're going to do a lot more of these. We're also going to do it on solar panels. I think next one we should do it on solar panels because there's a really good deal out there for solar panels. That if you use the grant and the no-interest loan, the 10-year no-interest loan, you can basically put a solar panel system on your home for free, for basically free, right? And if you're buying an electric car, when you're getting your gas or your fuel or your energy from the sun.
Yeah, and well, we've had a pretty sunny November here, and
you don't actually need sun though, too, right? You don't need.
No, you just need the ambient daylight, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So,
but in the wintertime, you would be paying some kind of a bill, yes or no?
Yeah. So you generate probably more in the summer than you need. That'll go into credits. Fortis has to net meter you. So that's British Columbia has that too going forward. So you can net meter, and so that way they'll generate a little bit more in the summer, and then you can draw out of your bank. They're not giving you cash, but you'll draw out of your bank. And
do you use them or lose them kind of idea? Do they roll over every year? Or
I haven't got there yet. But I don't think so. I think they net it out, but you can't be an overproducer, because if you like say produce 120% of your energy, they're just like, oh, you're a commercial producer, so here's your new rate, which is next to nothing, right? So the other good thing about energy, it's regulated, right? Like, so when the power company goes to get an increase, they have to go before a utilities commission, and they usually get a 2 or 3% increase. Whereas you wake up in the morning, there's another war started, and the gasoline prices have jumped 30 cents. And you know what I mean? Or anything, OPEC has decided that they're not going to pump more fuel or what have you, or this country's not getting along with this country.
Yeah.
And, of course, Canada doesn't want to pump any of its own oil, right? I don't think Canadians don't want to pump the oil. There's a lot of political interference in our oil and gas industry.
Yeah, and well, I mean, as we heard yesterday, imagine the amount of political interference in just our forestry practices, which could stand, I think, based on some of the conversations.
Some of the stuff doesn't make sense, right? Some of the stuff just doesn't make sense. We could be using that energy to invest in cleaner technologies that will benefit our youth, especially too. Like if you want to build more homes, drill, baby, drill, and let's get some oil and use that money to build homes and then give our youth homes.
And we could use that money to further build out infrastructure for electric.
Because we could be selling that energy to European nations right now instead of them buying it from Vladimir Putin. Yeah. And we could take those royalties and we could put that into the economy and build homes and offer grants to our young people and whatnot.
Well, Jim, now you're talking crazy talk here. So
am I? Well, there you go. Right. Trying to make sense. Right? Like places like in the UAE, they take all those oil products and they give it to the people.
I know, right?
Yeah. And in here, I know that some people like have $6,000 a night hotel rooms.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But I think you have to belong to a political party to enjoy that. Was that something? But I think
we're making no friends.
We're not making any friends. Well, I don't know. I think we could use our energy and uranium too. Like we have one of the biggest resources. Like we have so much resource. It's almost like you think sometimes that there's lobby groups that actually put money into different factions here that try to hold Canada back from developing its resources. And Russia and Canada are very similar in resources. Yeah. Like we're on the opposite sides of the globe, but we're very similar in our resources. And we're both very, very rich. And Russia's selling the platinum, the gold, and the silver, and the uranium, and the LNG, and the oil, and all that stuff, and we're stymied at almost everything we do, and our youth are suffering, and there's people that can't get housing.
It doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense, does it? Because I don't know, like it doesn't make any sense. Those resources, the royalties from that should be going towards $100,000 grants for first-time home buyers. Like, I mean, that'd be easy to do if we were using our oil and gas. This is an EV show, though, so we shouldn't get too far down that rabbit hole. But I'm saying, like, EVs make sense.
Energy is all interrelated, and it really could be a bridge if we used it properly to get us to all of our goals.
Energy makes sense. Like, I think, like, people that are standing in the way of EVs are missing the big picture. Like, EVs for like the average person driving to and from work and that, EVs make a lot of sense. And it will reduce our gasoline load. And then we can use that for like
everything trucks, else we use it for.
Trucks,
and also
trains, and
medicine,
tractors, right?
and clothing, like, and
plastic is oil,
right?
Right?
That's all.
Like, it's all. But petroleum's used in so many different things, right? But
like, are we thinking like once we don't need EV or once we don't need ICE vehicles anymore, that we're just going to not need oil?
Well, people
anymore?
think, that's a silly thing, right? Because oil and gas is used in so many things other than car transportation.
Yeah.
But the consumer will save so much money on maintenance and everything with an EV. Do you know what I mean? Like, and plus we can get all that energy from the sun, right? The biggest energy source we have is up there. And we can tap that with solar panels. And solar panels, again, we showed that, I think, in the first show. Solar panels have come off so much cost, like the cost of that technology too, right? So that's a real deal. There is a program out there, and I think that people will do a whole show on it. But people really seriously need to look at that, especially if you're living in, like the Okanagan or anywhere in the southern part of it's you can get a lot of your energy you can be your own utility company. That's if you listen to and advise people to go watch Elon Musk's master plan. It's not really about Tesla. It's about the energy, where he turns everybody. It says everybody can become their own energy producer. And that's the cool thing. You can store your own energy with power walls, and you can put solar panels on your roof, or you can buy solar tiles for your roof.
You know what we need to find out is when the Tesla roof will come to Canada.
Yeah.
That is
that's a cool thing too, right? So they have they're selling these big power stations. Australia just put one online, I think, today. So if you go on Twitter, or X, you can find it. They just put a big, I don't know, can't remember the name of it now, megawatt. It's huge that they just put online down there, because they're getting a lot of their energy from the sun.
Makes sense.
So, and then they're storing that energy. Of course, that's one of the things with solar. Lots of times you need to store it for an off use, right? So you definitely need a storage facility for it too, right? No different than oil and gas. People say, "Oh, you don't have to store oil and gas." Well, of course you do, right? Because you're putting it in the gas station. The gas station is storing it for you, right? They just store it everywhere.
Yeah.
And the supercharging networks are growing at a very fast rate, you know what I mean? So British Petroleum just put in $100 million order for Tesla chargers. And then EV out of the Europe just put in a huge order for these are gas stations, right? So that are putting in. So they're starting to put these charging stations into their.
It's an exciting time. It's almost like it really is going to be like the, horse and buggy era coming to an end within our lifetime.
And I think you could see Tesla or their charging system was so reliable. Like I pull up to a charging station, I get out and I just pull the thing off, push the button, plug it in. I don't have to pull out a credit card. I don't have to do anything, right?
Right.
It
just
charges, and you have to credit card lots of times, and sometimes they don't work. I think that 25% of the other ones don't work, or they don't charge at the right rate or whatever, and people can't get the credit card to work and all that kind of stuff, and they're really fighting with it. So Tesla's NCS system has been adopted now by Ford and GM and Hyundai, and I can't even remember all the cars. I think there are about 12 of the manufacturers. Rivian and Lucid even have taken it up, where they said, Lucid made fun of Tesla earlier on and said, oh, Lucid will have a better system. That was where Elon was quite smart in building out that supercharger system, because that in itself got rid of range anxiety for a lot of people, right? Because that's even when Kent did that interview at the Ford dealership yesterday, one of their bragging points was, hey, Ford did a deal with Tesla. And I believe Ford will do the first deal with Tesla for the software too. I believe that people like things like the Bronco. Do you know what I mean? Like they like the look of that vehicle. Just think if you had a Ford Bronco, underneath it was all Tesla and the software inside it was Tesla. I think you get a lot of buyers.
They've done a lot of different deals like that before with Volvo or different companies.
I think Jim Farley, the CEO of Ford, is very friendly with Elon, and Elon has said, hey, my technology is for sale, right? Like, I'm definitely help you out. A lot of their stuff's open source too, right? So the software is definitely one of the things that they have. FSD is a big deal too. I think Tesla's more of a software company or AI company than it is a car company. I don't even know if they want to make cars in the long run. Do you know what I mean? I think they want to license the technology and they want to give it to other manufacturers that are good at building cars. Although he's done some amazing stuff too. Like if you're ever into cars, gigafactories. I don't know if you know what a gigafactory is.
Well, that's the single mold.
Yeah, right? So they have a process for that. So, and everybody laughed at it. Well, I think Toyota just said, hey, we're going to do that too. So I think people are starting to see that. Because if you take something that was 300 parts and it's one part, obviously it makes sense, right? That it's going to be cheaper to...
everything. To assemble, to make.
I think Marcy's falling asleep, so we'll probably wrap it up there. She's like, okay, are these guys done yet? So we're going to try and do one of these every week. Trying to dispel some myths. We're going to try and localize it too, not just make it so that it's just for the world, but more for our market here in the Okanagan and in British Columbia, definitely British Columbia. And we'd like to get out there and drive some cars too. I do drive a Tesla. You drive a Hyundai Kona, but we'd love to drive some of the other ones too, right? So I think even Elon says that this market's only successful to this Switch is only successful if the other manufacturers survive, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's other people out there say they won't survive.
Competition can actually be a good thing.
I think it's great. I went to the Electrified show in Vancouver that had, you know, quite a few manufacturers there. Polestar. Polestar is like a Volvo product, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Rivian was there. Tesla was not there. Weird. But anyway.
I guess it doesn't need to be.
Volkswagen has some products. They're having a tough time too getting theirs out there. So, but I think everybody in town has something now, right? Like,
yeah, Audi has.
Does Mazda have something yet?
Ooh, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't
know. Audi has some stuff. Yeah. People again, those people that drive Audis love Audis.
Yeah.
I think Mercedes has stuff, expensive stuff, but they've always had expensive stuff. Right?
It's good though. It's good. It works.
Yeah,
well.
people like, you know, he gets that elite badge on the front there.
Yeah.
It's a huge badge. Anyway, we'll wrap that up and we'll see you next week. If you have questions or comments, you can definitely comment in the comments, or you can send an email into us here.
If you have an EV question, this is the place to ask it for sure. We'll go to the wall to get the answer if the EV master doesn't already know.
And if you want to test drive an EV, you're welcome to drive mine or Jason's.
just bring your driver's license. We'll let anybody.
And a bag of cash. But there's a lot of vehicles in town that you can drive to, I think, at the dealerships, right? So
yeah.
Definitely worth a look. All right. Till next time. Stay charged up.